I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sue, roll call, please.
Mr. Amaral?
Here.
Mr. Bendigo?
I am here.
Mrs. Kleffel?
Here.
Mrs. Lash?
Here.
Mr. Mull?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Mrs. Steinke? Mr. Weehan?
Here.
Moving on to 1.3, approval of minutes. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for a regular November 25th, 2024, reorganization meeting December 3rd, 2024, and the regular meeting in January of 27.
So move, Lash.
Second.
Second, Bendigo.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It's been approved 8-0. 1.4, executive sessions. The board met in executive session on Tuesday, February 18th, following the committee meeting for personnel matters, and the board will also be meeting in executive session after this meeting, also for personnel matters. 2.0, reports of officers and board representation. 2.1, president. We've had some discussions with SVEA, and I'm going to ask Mr. John Jenkins to come up to.
Green light's good. Okay, I'm John Jenkins, president of SVEA. I'm just here to make a brief announcement. So I'm John Jenkins, president of Schuylkill Valley Education Association. In early January, Schuylkill Valley Education Association conducted a workplace climate survey to gather data needed to ensure effective representation of our membership. On February 5th, SVA leadership met with the board to review the results of that survey and propose a working relationship for the betterment of our members. The conversation that followed the review of the survey data was positive. The board expressed their commitment to continue to meet with us, and we are optimistic that these meetings will lead to positive changes in our district. Our next meeting is scheduled for early March. We will continue to update our membership regularly and make updates here as needed as we continue through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So I know we have a full agenda item. At this point, I really don't have anything else to add. Again, thanks. The board, does listen. The board does reach out and talk to people. It's fairly well connected, and I appreciate the time that the leadership of the SVEA came and met with us. There were 3 of their officers, and then a representative also from, I think it was the PSEA. Yep. So, moving on, 2.2. Secretary Linda Lash.
No report.
2.3, Berks IU.
I do have several things. One, on April 2nd, the IU will be holding its annual Annie Sullivan Award. There haven't been a lot of nominees over the last few years, but last year there were quite a few, and this year every school district, all the CTCs and the IU have a person that was nominated for this award. So it was really well attended, and it was a good thing to go to last year. Also, our students, elementary students, I believe, were involved in a Pennsylvania Invention Convention. And I think it was a group of boys that it did. Okay. And they participated in something that the IU ran. It was a virtual qualifying round, and over 200 projects were submitted to be considered at the state level. And our district, Muhlenberg, Ole, and Reading, had standout projects that got them invited into the state competition in Hershey. And they didn't get any further than that, but I think that was a good start for us to do that. So I was really glad that we did that, and I forget what their project was. I saw it somewhere. What did they do? Vending machine, right. Good. Okay, so I was really glad to see we did that. Also, one of the IU employees, Dr. Michelle Reichert Huff, that some of us here on the board know, was awarded the 2025 PAPSA, which is the Pennsylvania Public Student Services Award, and she got that. There were a lot of things that she was nominated for in her work at the IU, and she has testimonials from the IU board president, the Berks County commissioners, the COLA chair from the IU, and Dr. Susan Looney from Reading Area Community College. So she was well deserving of this award. She's a very busy lady and works a lot with the youngest members of our county and with special education. So something else that the IU will be holding is Camp Connect, the 11th annual Camp Connect, June 16th to 19th for the Temple-Muhlenberg area, and anybody from the county can go there, and August 4 to 7 in the Spring Township, Mones Hill area. And it's a 4-day camp for children who have lost someone to death that's close to them. So I think we've had somebody that's attended that in the past, but I'm not sure. Also, the IU put out a Continuing Connections publication, which is their mid-year State of the Union unit, and it tells everything that the IU has done from the beginning of the year till now, and it's quite a lengthy document. If anybody on the board wants to see that, I'll share that with you. Something that I found interesting, the Pennsylvania Key, which is a preschool support from the state, is sponsoring with the IU a countywide Lighted Up Green Day. And if anybody's interested or would like a Lighted Up Green Mental Health Awareness t-shirt, I can give you the QR code that you can use to get a free t-shirt and support mental health across America. So if anybody wants that, it's March 7th that you would wear your green t-shirt. Then I have a list of, I have the federal news updates, and then there are 80 new or resubmitted House bills to the state. Once a House bill or Senate bill gets to the end of December, if it hasn't been worked on or moved forward, it can be brought up again in the next session. So some of these bills are new and some of these bills are resubmitted. And there's 80-some House bills and 30-some Senate bills that are going forward. And there's too many here to go over, but if anybody would like a list of these, I can tell you where you can get them, or you can ask me and you can see what I have. And the House will be scheduled to come back into session on March 17th, and the session will come into session on March 24th. So we have that. And I think I'm good with everything. Oh, and that's the big one. No, I'll do that one later. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. 2.4, Berks Career and Technology Center, it's myself. A couple updates, so you know, as of this week, the BCTC has received 1,148 applicants. And to put that in perspective, all of 2024, they had 1,215. That goes through August. So the enrollment is open until August. But as you've heard me say before, I encourage people to enroll as soon as you can because of the openings. They typically only take between 700 and 725 applicants. They're looking at the enrollments and some of the attritions, and right now they're trying to get, the target is 819 applicants. And to put that in perspective, in 2024, 2025, students enrolled through 10th through 12th grades was 1,857. And they're targeting now for the 25-26 school year, 2,100. So when you put that in perspective, that's why that's 700, 7.25. So if they're at 2,100 and they're going with 800, they try to balance out all their programs to make sure that they have kids in all three levels. Just to put in perspective for here at Schuylkill Valley, we've had so far 68 applicants that have completed all their information and submitted. Again, they have time, but as you've heard me talk about before, it's important to do. One of the things that BCTC is working with is they're going to work with Topahawken, and they're actually going to develop a large animal vet program. And it's actually going to be right by the softball field that's there on 183 and the elementary school. So they've demolished, I guess, the house and the barn, and they're going to put it in that location, and they're going to coordinate with the Burnville vet. The Burnville vet only has small animals, and so they're going to work with large animals, and the program that they're trying to design is the first of its type, apparently, in the state. So that's something that is to looking forward to. The other thing, again, we're completing our second year of working on a NASA project. So these kids have gotten items up in space, and it went so well last year with some of the precision machining that they were asked again to do a second project this year. So, you know, these kids have done a lot of great things at our BCTC. We've won awards. Right now it's in that season, so some of our students here at Schuylkill Valley, if they participate in some of these programs, they're now traveling across the state. We've made it through some of the rounds of competition, so it's really nice to see that. We've had some representation in the past, but BCTC has always been well represented. I think that's it from their side. Oh, from the board's perspective is on Wednesday, we'll have our preliminary board budget presentation for BCTC, and that will be turned over. Once we vote on that, that'll be turned over to the sending school districts so that they'll understand what that budget is. We do have one piece outstanding as we're looking at one of the labor contracts to see what we want to do. But we'll at least get that first round, just like we get it. We'll get that first round presentation. And of course, as everybody knows, that our budget amount is also dependent upon the enrollment of our Schuylkill Valley kids. So, you know, we get, all costs are all based upon our student enrollment, so we'll get that figure. So that's all I have for 2.4 in the BCTC. 2.5, Tax Collection Committee.
No update at this time. The next meeting will be held in March.
2.6, Pennsylvania School Board Association Liaison, Linda Lash.
Okay. Okay, the one big thing I did have was the governor delivered his 2025 state budget address on February 4th. And there's been a 6.7% proposed increase in basic education funding, Ready to Learn grant, and that would be a $601 million increase. Special education, 2.7% increase, a $40 million increase. Career and tech ed, a $5.5 million increase, or a 3.8% increase. And then school student teacher stipends, something that's new, a $20 million increase, which really means that it's a 100% increase they're giving to student teachers for stipends. A $17.5 million increase for school transportation, which is a 2.3% increase. And for school food services, 10.9% increase, which is a $10.7 million increase, and that includes the continuation of the universal free breakfast for all students. And then the school safety and mental health grants, that's been an 8% decrease, a $9.7 million decrease in funding for school safety and mental health grants. So that is about, well, I did get updates on Title IX, and I got updates on the DEI in schools. And our superintendent had already sent those out to us when she got them, so it was just a refresher for me.
Thank you, Linda. And you have one more, the 2.7 Schuylkill Valley Education Foundation.
I got a notice from Courtney Clay that the foundation will be having a dinner on April 4th, I believe it is, and it will be held at Greystone Farm. I saw Kai here somewhere. Kai, do I have that right? Is it April 4th? And it's a semi-formal affair. You can get a table for a certain amount of participants, or you can buy individual tickets to it. And there'll be an auction and all kinds of things that you can buy. And it's to help give the teachers things that they could use in their classrooms, from what I understand from her email. So you can get a hold of Courtney, or I know there are some people here that you could probably contact, and they could give you the information on how to get tickets to that. So sounds like they're up and running, and that's a really good thing. I'm glad to hear that. And that's everything.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, 3.0, persons who wish to address the board. 3.1, guidelines to address the board. Anyone who wishes to address the board will have 3 minutes to state their questions or concerns. Please state your name, where you live, and if you have a written statement, the board will appreciate receiving a copy. Verbal comments about staff will not be tolerated, as we have procedures in place to address personnel concerns from the public, and the staff might not even realize that there's a problem. Per policy 903, at the conclusion of your 3 minutes, we will move on to the next speaker, return to the agenda. I have the list. First up is Lisa Jacobson.
My name is Lisa Jacobson. I'm from Bern Township. If you didn't already know who I am, a district administrator kindly introduced me at last month's board meeting. That administrator stood at this podium and made slanderous accusations against me. Furthermore, the spouse of that administrator contacted my place of employment with these accusations in an attempt to cause further damage. As a result, I was required to seek legal protection from these false accusations. Let that sink in for a minute. As a district resident and parent, I had to seek legal protection from a district administrator and a board member. What alternate reality are we living in that is possibly acceptable? Despite that, I am here today because I care greatly about my personal and professional integrity in the community where I live, where I used to work, and where I maintain many relationships. I want to set the record straight so there can be no misunderstanding that these accusations are patently false. First and foremost, I was accused of violating FERPA. That sounds pretty serious, right? And it would be if it were true. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, protects the privacy of students' educational records. It applies to schools and their employees, and it limits the sharing of educational records and personally identifiable information. Many people outside of school are not familiar with FERPA. Generally speaking, FERPA is the educational equivalent of HIPAA. Most people know HIPAA, right? It speaks to the confidentiality of medical records by doctors and nurses. So I'm going to tell you something right now. I have a friend named Jen. She has Bell's palsy. Am I violating HIPAA by telling you that? No. There's no personally identifiable information there. There's thousands of Jens in the world. I know at least 20. But more importantly, I'm not a doctor, so HIPAA doesn't apply to me. So going back to FERPA, I'm not allowed to share educational records and personally identifiable information about students in the district where I work. I haven't worked at Schuylkill Valley for 4.5 years. I cannot violate FERPA because I don't have access to any records of students at Schuylkill Valley other than my own children. So the claim that I violated FERPA and harmed a child by reposting an anonymous post on social media. This post included no educational records or personally identifiable information of the child. The post did include criticism of a district administrator. The original post was anonymous because the parent feared retaliation against their child. So is this what we do at Schuylkill Valley now? Make spurious accusations, intimidate, and retaliate against people when we don't like what they have to say? It takes a lot of guts to stand up here and address the board. Many people stand up here with voices cracking and hands shaking because they're not used to speaking out. Many students have stood up here to express concerns and displeasure at the direction of the district. How many of those people are going to stand up now thinking they may be publicly called out and falsely accused when all they want to do is share their thoughts and opinions with you in hopes of making a difference? One more thing. Many of us who speak out have spoken out for teachers and staff members, have shared that staff members are reluctant to speak up for themselves and to speak to you directly for fear of retribution and retaliation. Last month, you saw firsthand that fear was credible. When someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them.
Thank you. Next up is Joanna Schlottman.
Joanna Schlottman, Bern Township. In December, I spoke at the podium to shed light on the reasons behind the continued turnover. You may remember me asking the board to dive deeper into why turnover is so high, that it has little to do with commute times and home districts, and more to do with leadership styles and work environment. I stated that after 7 years, I left because the environment is hostile, the expectations are unreasonable, and the leadership styles are retaliatory. I cautioned the board that many were leaving without much context for fear of retaliation by some administration. An example of retaliatory behavior would be an administrator using their position or information specific to their position to attack by name other speakers in a public meeting. The final speaker at the January meeting demonstrated this exact kind of retaliatory behavior. One can only imagine the kind of treatment behind closed doors. As no one on the board nor the superintendent stopped that speech, it seems the leaders of this district have no issue with aggressive retaliatory behavior. How are you still confused why so many people are leaving? I was stunned that not only did no one put a stop to the personal attacks, but instead, the speaker's spouse could be heard saying to let her finish. Never has a board member advocated to allow me more time when my allotment ended. When personal interests clash with professional, or in this case, elected responsibility, the term is ethical conflict. The hostile and retaliatory environment currently being supported at SV will continue to drive people away. How many other people need to leave before you do something to change it? Thank you.
Next up is Kai Miller.
Good evening, Kai Miller, Onalani Township resident, graduate of Schuylkill Valley, mom, aunt, and bonus mom to multiple SV students, and SV junior high girls soccer coach. I addressed the SV School Board for the first time at 12 years old. During that address, our superintendent, Dr. Yarworth, gently corrected some of my assumptions. Afterward, he took me aside and told me, "I'm proud of what you did tonight, but when you're going to speak for or against something, make sure your facts are correct. It's critically important right now that we as parents and residents take the time to get our facts correct and credible. Mr. Mull, you state in the guidelines that no staff members should be named, yet you've permitted individuals to make unfounded claims about the interim AD by name. This individual stepped up, worked through the summer, managed fields, drought issues, and more. He supported athletes and coaches, and his work contributed to the fall sports successes of this district. But people are choosing to spread false claims in these meetings, accusations of overpayment and kickbacks. I asked to see the proof, and the accusations are false. He's offered that proof to anyone who wanted to see it, but nobody's cared enough about the truth to ask. So, why do I care so much? Many of you know one reason. He's my father. Does that make me biased? Maybe, probably. But if you know our family, you know that we are fierce, independent thinkers. My entire adult life is guided by the morals my parents instilled in me. Even today, when faced with an ethical choice, my North Star is simple. Could I justify that decision to my dad? When he was on school board, he made it a point to go to as many SV events as he could. Think about how much time he's spent in this district with these students and these athletes. We grew up with a dad who taught us that if you're going to do something, you commit and you don't make excuses. He never does. And that's the other reason I'm speaking. I love this district. I am angry that some parents would rather attack a man who has dedicated himself to this district than focus on significant and provable issues crippling our school. If you have 3 minutes at this microphone, use them for the right reasons. Get your facts straight, nail your argument, and if you can't attend, write your statement and have someone read it. Get off Facebook. Get your clearances. Volunteer and make a difference. To the board, I'm disappointed at what these meetings have become. They're procedural at best. I'm happy to speak to any of you about what I mean, but tonight I want to focus on why I'm here. If you're going to state a rule, enforce it. So let me speak like a coach. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you don't have your basics down, don't expect your team to perform well. Play your position, don't half-ass it. Your teammates need you. And to my fellow SV parents, it's game time. Keep your eye on the ball.
Thanks, Kai. Next up is Jane Segota.
My name is Jane Segota, and I reside in Center Township. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Miss Stephanie Deibler. Steph, as I can see through watching last week's meeting, recently resigned, and I want to speak on her behalf. I've known Steph for a very long time. I knew her not only as a colleague, but primarily I knew her as a parent of student athletes, my own. After watching Steph for many years, I saw she had four very strong qualities. One, she cared about kids. She cared about all kids. Whether you were a great athlete, not such a great athlete, or somewhere in between, it didn't matter. She cared about the whole child. That's admirable. She cared about coaches. She cared about helping coaches become the best that they could be, bringing out their best qualities. That's admirable. Probably most importantly, she understood the mission. We all of us, school board members, staff members, parents, taxpayers, everybody in this community has the same mission. We are here to help kids become who they are going to be, who they need to be in this world. And Steph got that mission. She understood that. She understood that was our job. And she cared about it. And she cared about Schuylkill Valley. She loved Schuylkill Valley. And she gave her best to Schuylkill Valley. I know you can't talk to me. You don't ever respond to people who are addressing you. But I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Have you individually asked Steph why she left? Or are you just listening to what you're told? Because if you haven't, I beg of you to speak to Steph. Ask her why she left. We need to be the best that we can be for all of our students. And we can't do that if we don't understand all the facts. So we need to speak to people, find out why they're leaving, and then make corrections to make this the gem of the county that it should be. Thank you.
Next up is Christine Wysocki.
Christine Wysocki, Bern Township. I'd first like to recognize my former colleagues who are retiring or resigning. Mr. Evanowski was certified in 2 sought-after disciplines, math and science. Having him on staff gave flexibility and a larger choice of courses for our students, which definitely benefited them. Mrs. Kummer was born for teaching our earliest learners. She has made a huge impact on her students by making their first year one of wonder and discovery. I would hear my 6th graders talk about how much they loved her. Ms. Hanilowski uses her calm, soothing voice to present information in a truly captivating way. I had the pleasure of observing her teach while I was subbing, and I could have listened to her for hours. Very few teachers have her innate skills of a truly exceptional teacher this early in their careers. I saw those skills in Cara Feeney, who also sadly is no longer here, and Ms. Steibler, who is leaving after 26 years. Many in education say that the AD job is the most difficult job in the school. The hours are horrible. They need to calm unruly fans. It's a constant juggling act of schedules and coaches' wishes, and they need to deal with the occasional vocal parent who can't accept that a school needs to follow PIAA rules. I have disagreed with Ms. Steibler about sports. However, after discussing it, she always had the student's best interest at heart. Last week, I was in a local store when some of our athletes made a beeline toward me. The first words out of their mouths were, "Did you hear Ms. Steibler left? What can we do to get her back?" One player told me that he is involved in sports here at Schuylkill Valley because Ms. Steibler encouraged him to join. He wasn't involved in anything extracurricular at his old school. Another one added in a laughing tone that she can straighten them out when they get out of line, but is cool about it. Those teens know she cares. The students lost another safety net with her departure, and I hope all of you board members questioned her to ask why. It's a shame that some have forgotten the sole reason we are here. Kids truly know when adults care and when they do not. They pay attention to actions over empty words. Please start to listen to the students and reach out to them when they muster up the courage to address you here in a forum that has pushed many out of their comfort zones. Lastly, I've heard some of you say that staff members left because they couldn't handle change. That's insulting. In case you forgot, we taught through COVID when we were building the plane while flying it. Many of us left because we couldn't handle changes that hurt the children. There's a big difference. Leaving paraprofessional positions open, throwing special needs students in settings where they struggle further, having no emotional support teachers, choosing a reading series with little to no input from staff nor samples from other publishers, having high-level math students learning online, not addressing students who begged you to look into why Mrs. McCosh left, and not listening to a former teacher when she compared the school to the Titanic are all examples of not putting students first. Turn it around, and please, before making decisions, ask yourselves, is this the absolute best for all of our students? Have we discussed facts with multiple stakeholders? You have one chance to educate these students. Please follow the school's vision and remember what once made this place great.
Next up is Peggy Romanis.
Peggy Romanis, Leesport Borough. First, thank you all for serving on the board. I know it's not an easy job. For those of you who do not know me, I've been a community member for 45 years. My son and daughter graduated from Schuylkill Valley and went on to college. Over the years at Schuylkill Valley, I was a school district newsletter editor for 15 years, a swim instructor, coach, and an employee in child registration and human resources. I retired as a human resources coordinator in 2016. When I worked in child registration, I registered families moving into the area who came to Schuylkill Valley because their realtors told them that this was the best school district in the county. Our school district no longer has that reputation. I was a newsletter editor when I interviewed Stephanie Deibler as the new athletic director in 1998. From the day she was hired, I saw Steph hit the ground running. And over the next 18 years until I retired, I saw her almost on a daily basis, including weekends, giving her heart and soul to the athletes, students, coaches, and parents of Schuylkill Valley. I would see Steph all over the school campus, in the hallways, athletic fields, at practices and games, home and away. supporting the athletes and helping the coaching staff in any way she could. She had her cell phone glued to her 24/7 to be available should any problems arise. She was an excellent problem solver and had the ability to quickly adapt to and resolve glitches in schedules and plans. Steph was not only totally committed to the athletic program, but was also a helpful hand to her colleagues at many other school events and activities, showing up at art shows, musicals, small and large school events to lend a hand whenever she could. Everyone who has known Steph over the years knows she always gave 100% effort to make Schuylkill Valley successful. I can say there were very few students at Schuylkill Valley Steph didn't know, even the non-athletes. She took a genuine interest in them all. That's why I was shocked when I heard Steph was on an improvement plan. I sat here at prior meetings and heard she was bullied out of her job, and after turning in her resignation was escorted out of the building to her car. I would say anyone who knows Stephanie Deibler would say she was more dedicated and busier than any staff member at Schuylkill Valley, other than perhaps Michael Billman. He was an invaluable employee who was 100% dedicated to this district, as was Stephanie Deibler. It's a shame how their careers ended with this district. Instead, we should be placing plaques on the walls of Schuylkill Valley in honor of these dedicated employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Next up is Joseph Brown.
Good evening. I'm Joe Brown from Bern Township. At last Monday's meeting, the air temperature in this room was a little bit cold. Someone forgot to turn the heat on, and a lot of you guys were sitting up here with coats because of the uncomfortable nature of the temperature in the room. At another recent board meeting, we learned the students are not allowed to have coats with them because there's a possibility they may be hiding a weapon inside that coat. According to school policy, the students' coats must be placed in their locker. Imagine the thought that went into that policy. It's such a concern that a student can hide a weapon in a coat, yet throughout the school day, they have the ability to go to their locker. It makes no sense. This policy has now caused greater concern since the meeting which that was disclosed. On January 30th, the fire alarm was pulled after there was a smell of natural gas. I believe this was about the 5th time that there was a reported leak. On that day, the students were sent out in 27-degree weather without coats, without hats, and without gloves. The administrators, however, had the ability to grab their outerwear to protect themselves from the elements, while the students did not. Many of the students said they were outside for 20 minutes while first responders were dispatched for the incident. I'm curious who was in charge that day, because it took all that time for someone to finally make a decision to walk the kids through the snow to the middle school. Evacuations from the school is not something new, yet there seemed to be no one making the decision immediately to get the students out of the elements and into the middle school. Despite having a school safety director, do you have nothing in place to deal with these incidents, or why are the policies not being followed? As administrators, you have a duty of care looking out for our children while they are at school, yet you didn't. As administrators, you are also mandated reporters when it comes to someone violating that duty of care. Was the inaction that day reported, or was there potential that those mandated reporters didn't see this as such a big deal? If I wasn't troubled by that yet again, another failure to react by the administration, I was more concerned over what the students reported after the incident. If what is said is not true, then you as a board and as administrators need to tell us now that it is not true. If it is true, you have a bigger problem. While our children were out in the cold without proper dress to keep them from the exposure to the weather, it has been said that some of our administrators were sitting in their vehicles keeping warm. Imagine that. It was reported that other administrators may have left the school property and went to a convenience store during the incident. Yet you as a board can solve this issue simply by looking at the cameras and conducting interviews. If this didn't occur, then you need to quash the information. If it's true, you have a greater issue than you can either fathom. Either way, the parents deserve an answer. Thank you.
Oh, next, okay. Okay.
Enough, Joe, thank you. I appreciate the information, and I will look into it.
Oh. So next up is Ryan Gordon.
Ryan Gordon, Leesport. I was going to let this go, but everything that happened with Miss Steibler, I had to come up here and say something. During the final home playoff game of the football season, I learned that Miss Tashner ordered the equipment on the west end of the football field moved as my banner 10 minutes after I left and 20 minutes before the game started. I agreed I would brush the field twice a week and do all repairs and clean it during the weeks when football home games for free throughout the fall season, sometimes not getting out until 11 at night. The coaches all sat down there with, and both athletic directors confirmed it with you, that this is what the deal was. And 4 of my workers were seniors that were playing their last game on that field that actually hung up the banner. So rather than showing that those students, athletes, the hard work pays off, you jeopardized everything that they worked for and took down the banner moments before the biggest game of their life. Starting tonight, we will not work on that field again while Ms. Tashner is still here. Her decision to move our banner without informing me or at least placing it where it could be seen was unacceptable, but it isn't out of her character. I've learned that she's always comes first. Everlasting Turf has donated over $10,000 to different organizations at Schuylkill Valley, such as field hockey, youth baseball, wrestling, high school baseball, football. Just this month, we're donating the turf from the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs to the Schuylkill Valley Youth Baseball with the permission of the Philadelphia Phillies. Effective immediately, we will also stop donations to any organization at Schuylkill Valley as long as you're in your current position. I always thought you cared for Schuylkill Valley, but now I see that you could care less about how hard my high schoolers and I work to provide a great and safe field for the athletes all fall, and how proud my players and I were to have our banner displayed, especially for their playoff game. This feels like a slap in the face to me, my guys, who are your students in the Schuylkill Valley community. You represent a larger problem in the world today, prioritizing your own interests above others. I'm not only disappointed for myself, but infuriated for my students who worked hard on the field, took pride in having the banner hung there. Rather than showing them hard work is awarded, you take a banner they hung down 15 minutes before the biggest game of their lives. You are also jeopardizing the safety of student athletes by losing a company that has contracts with professional sports teams and some of the biggest architects in the East Coast. You've been here 3 years, know nothing about this school and the people who made it what it once was before you got here. You forced Miss Stadler's resignation by making her life a living hell for the past 3 years, when she actually served this community for 24 years in the athletic department. She wasn't aware of the decision the night before that you came in and you guys escorted her down to the HR and out of the building. I said, you know it's bad when you have old school board members running again, because if this continues, Schuylkill Valley, which was once in the top 3 schools in this county with Wyomissing and Wilson, will be at the bottom. This used to be a valley full of positivity and laughter, where it felt like the sun was always shining. It was a place many of us would always feel at home. It now feels as if the sun hasn't shined in years and the rain just continues to fall harder and harder. It's clear to me and the rest of the community, including the students, that the Red Queen and her court are the problem, and your house of cards is falling fast. Thank you.
We'll move on to 4.0. 4.1, Solicitor's Report.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mole, thank you.
Is there any other old or new business for the board? Under 4.2? Hearing none. 5.0, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mole. We have a slideshow to show some of the highlights from this month. Give a minute to... Okay. I think we heard Mrs. Lash talk about the PA Invention Convention. Our fourth grade gifted Panthers, Brooke, Benjamin, and Alexander showcased their project, the Foodmatron 5000, a vending machine that provides warm, nutritious meals to people experiencing homelessness. They showed this at the PA Invention Convention, a state-level competition. It's always exciting to see the things that our students come up with, and what a great invention to bring forth to that convention that day, and we are so proud of the work that they're doing. And I want to also recognize Mrs. Vroman, who is their teacher. She started this year at the elementary school and is doing an outstanding job there with our students. We also had Schuylkill Valley Elementary School Family Reading Night with author Matt Fellon. It was a large event, and once again, many parents, we thank everybody who came out. As you can see on the left, was not a llama this year. It was a what, Mrs. Dr. Donahue? It was a pig this year. So we have had a llama, I think we've had a cow, we've had a pig, and we've had a turkey at the elementary school. But what a great night. We were so glad to see everyone come out. So thank you for that. Thank you to the teachers who put it together, to our librarian, our reading specialist, and all the teachers who volunteered their time to come out. Last night, we had the privilege of attending the Schuylkill Valley High School National Honor Society. What a great evening it was. We inducted, I think it was 32 new members last evening, and just a wonderful evening to see our students come together, to see all the work they did, and not only their academics and scholarship, but the service hours they've put in, their leadership skills in their clubs, and of course, students of such great character that are helping lead our high school. So congratulations to all the students and their families that were inducted last evening. We also had our FFA members, which attended the agricultural cooperation establishes Success Leadership Conference. I have to tell you, our ag program has been growing in leaps and bounds. We are so proud of our students. Lucy Kerr, Lily Kratz also attended Berks County's Leadership Development event, competing in the employment skills, creed speaking, and creed speaking respectively. And if you haven't ever had a chance to see our students at these competitions, I would encourage you at some point to take advantage of that opportunity. It's quite outstanding to see them compete against their peers across the county. Just a couple of notes on our athletic postseason. Our boys, we still have students that are wrestling. We have our boys basketball team in the gym tonight playing in their playoff game. We had in swimming and diving, we want to recognize Charlotte Schwendeman and Carly Krills. They both qualified for districts after finishing first and second at the BCIAA Championship diving meet. And Charlotte is the first Schuylkill Valley diver to win a BCIAA championship. So congratulations to both Charlotte and Carly. Our bowling team also had postseason play. Our girls basketball were involved in postseason play. And of course, our cheerleading team Reach the Beach Championship. Again, going to the national competition. So congratulations to all our athletes in their postseason efforts. We want to congratulate, most of you know, Mrs. Yard. Coriel Yard is one of our elementary school teachers. She was inducted into the Berks County Basketball Hall of Fame. If you haven't noticed, her name is also on the gymnasium wall. That score and record board was a vision of this board, but certainly driven by Mr. Miller. And we appreciate his dedication, his commitment, and passion for athletics and for every student in this school. Mrs. Yard, I want to say, we went up to her classroom the other day. Dr. O'Donnell took a cake up with some balloons, and her students were so excited, not just about the cake. They were excited to see their teacher in the news and to see her accomplishment. So we asked them who was going to be able to, did they think was going to be able to compete with Mrs. Yard and take her on at maybe recess, etc. And they were pretty excited about that. But Coriel, congratulations, very proud of her and all she's done for our students in teaching, but also in her athletic career. We also this month had the high school financial reality fair. The reality fair is where students learn real world situations to understand the value of their paycheck, including costs related to housing, transportation, insurance, food, entertainment, cell phones, etc. We want to thank all of the credit unions that are listed and the volunteers who came and really gave of their time and their effort to teach our students about saving money and spending money wisely. Discovery Credit Union, Diamond Federal Credit Union, Riverfront Credit Union, First Commonwealth Credit Union, Hidden River Credit Union, Visions Federal Credit Union, Niagara Bottling of Hamburg, and NHS of Berks County. So thank you for all of your efforts and for joining us at the high school. We have some music news that we are excited to share. Performing with the Berks County All-Star Jazz Band, Gabrielle Perry and Andrew Kerper. April 8th, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Highlands at Wyomissing. April 10th, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Miller Center. We also have students with Dr. Our students had the opportunity to learn from Dr. Christopher Hefner, Director of Bands and Trumpet Professor at Lebanon Valley College. He conducted a rehearsal with our specific Schuylkill Valley High School concert band and answered student questions about how to pursue music in college and as a career. It's that time of year, March 28th and 29th. The POP musical tickets are on sale, and our students are preparing for a great show, Once Upon a Mattress. We hope that you will all join us. There's a QR code for ticket information, and I know that this information is being shared on social media and on our website. So if you need tickets, just hit that QR code, and we hope to see everybody at the musical. We had a tremendous turnout for the 2025 Super Bowl. We raised money for the Art Club and for the Connor Cleffel Memorial Foundation, which supports Schuylkill Valley students and their endeavors. All three buildings participated in creating bowls for this event, and I will tell you they were absolutely beautiful, very hard to choose between the bowls. Students did an outstanding job. I thank the board for providing the kiln that was being used. I asked the students about how the new kiln was working, and they said it's going great. So great job to our students, amazing efforts in their artwork, and we want to thank everybody who came out to support this great event. And finally, last but not least, Mrs. Lash was talking about the Schuylkill Valley Education Foundation. And the Schuylkill Valley Education Foundation supports students and staff at Schuylkill Valley. I know that Courtney has been working with our business department to make sure that the paycheck deduction option can be used by our employees. And Also, we were informed about the Red and Black Gala, which will be held on April 4th, as you heard earlier, and it will help Schuylkill Valley Education Foundation in that mission. If you're sitting here tonight and you're not sure how to get the information, you can hit that QR code with your phone right now, or I'd be happy to put this up again at the end of the evening for anyone that needs the information. It will be from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Greystone Farm. Dress code is semi-formal, $60 a person, $100 a couple, and $45 for an educator ticket. So we hope that everyone will join us on what's going to be an absolutely very special evening. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Tashner. Moving on then to 6.0, Policy, Personnel, and Public Relations. Again, as a reminder, any other old or new business for the superintendent? Keep on hitting the button the wrong way. 6.0, Policy, Personnel, and Public Relations. As a reminder, these are items that we previously discussed. We have two addendums. Without objection, we'll consolidate.
David, could we do 6.1 separate?
That's fine. So we'll just do 6.1. I'll entertain a motion for 6.1, which is the school calendar 2025-2026. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Kleffel.
Discussion.
I would like to ask that we amend this motion so that the calendar day for February changed February 9th from a day off to a normal school day, and that we have April 6th to become a non-school day. This request came out of discussion with the Schuylkill Valley Education Association, where the option between the two dates was given, and where a general consensus seemed to be that more of our employees preferred having April 6th as the non-school day. So I'd like to make that change to it.
Is it
If
April
anybody-
6th or April 20th?
It's Monday, April 6th. Right, for...
Are we doing
this
the
would
day
be-
after
this
Easter?
would-
We'll ask Michelle to look at her calendar.
I believe that's the 20th.
Let's change it to the 20th. How's
Okay.
that? So are we sure, is it the 6th or the 20th? It is
Oh, for 2026.
the 6th, the 6th on 2026.
Sorry.
Got it.
Yep. I'm moving way slow. Huh?
So we have a motion and a second, and now an amended calendar. Is there any other discussion?
Last week.
Are we all good? All those in favor of this amended calendar signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Are you okay?
It passes 8-0. Now moving on to 6.2 through 6.11. Consolidation without objection. I'll entertain a motion.
Second, Kleffel.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes 8-0. We have an addendum 612, employment co-curricular. The board is requesting to consider and approve the following co-curricular assignment stipend adjustment for 2024-2025 school year. FFA Head Advisor Lisa Schlott for $3,665.
So move, Kleffel.
Second, Bendigo.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 8-0. 613, Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, acknowledges the following Family Medical Leave Acts of absence. Susan Chrisman, Executive Secretary to the Superintendent, January 9th through January 29th, 2025. Deborah Hill, English as a second language teacher at the elementary school and middle school, effective December 16th, 2024 through January 15th, 2025. Anna Martin, special ed education teacher at the middle school, effective approximately March 18th, 2025 through the conclusion of the 24-25 school year. And Ron Saucer, sixth grade teacher at the middle school, effective March 11th through March 25th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Lash.
Second.
Second, Rossi.
Discussion. I wish everybody well in the situations that they're dealing with. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 8-0. Under 614, is there any other old or new business under policy personnel? Hearing none. 7-0, curriculum and technology. We have one item that we brought up in our committee meeting, the proposal for Sapphire software. I'll entertain a motion for 7.1.
So move, Cleffel.
Second.
Second, Lash.
Discussion. Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 8-0. We have one addendum, E-rate. The board is requesting to consider and approve the awarding of E-rate Category 2 funding to SHI for Cisco wireless and switching equipment, and to further authorizes the Director of Technology to sign off on the quote not to exceed the district's Uniform Service Administration Company's funding allotment, which is $353,372. I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Bendigo.
Second.
Second, Cleffel.
Discussion.
Can we have an explanation on what this is?
That's what I was going to just ask Michael to come up to the camera, to the microphone.
So this is E-rate funding provided by Universal Servicing Administration Company. It is it's funded by everyone in the nation, their utility bill, cell phone, cable, internet bill. There's a fee that goes into this. That goes into a general pool or pot throughout the country, and then based on our student enrollment counts and our economic status, we get this fund. So there's two categories. First category, or category 1, is to provide internet access to the school. Category 2 is for equipment to distribute that internet. So this is for category 2, equipment to distribute internet services in our district.
So it says here it won't exceed the funding allotment.
Yeah, so our...
What do you anticipate it to?
So that's the max it can be, and we want to use those dollars, go to that max without leaving anything on the table. If we go over, then the district funds 100% of that. So up to that number, we get a 50% discount or subsidy from USAC.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion?
I just have a question. E-rate's been around for a long time, but I just got a notice from PSBA that there may be more funding in the E-rate because there was some fraud. Do you know anything about that?
So the biggest news in E-rate right now is with our new country's administration president. Some of the lower courts, and you can probably speak better to this than I can, but some of the lower courts actually determined that it's unconstitutional, E-rate. So far, the kind of state guru on E-rate is observing what's happening and saying it's kind of like, unfortunately, in the news, planes have been a big deal. But if you're on a plane and there's turbulence and, they sit down, the stewardess, or sorry for the PC term, if they sit down, then turbulence is bad. Right now, USAC and E-rate, they are not sitting down and waiting to see what executive action or orders come out or what the lower courts are doing. They're continuing as kind of business as normal. So that's how we're operating at this point.
Okay, I just wondered because it was kind of confusing to begin with, and if that's affected and the R1 is affected, then I don't know what our service will be like.
So this is Category 2. This is just equipment. Category 1 would be the RWAN, so that's like our internet service provider. That's provided by BCIU. I'm actually on the steering committee where we are talking about that. We're about a year out, so we should have a kind of lower court decision or a Supreme Court decision prior to where that's going to be in about a year.
Okay, because it's like, all of this was a big deal at one time, and now it's like all coming because there are other things that could be used for that.
Yeah, we don't expect it to go away. I think the challenge right now is the unconstitutionalness of individuals paying for it in their utility bills. There might be other funding mechanisms for it, so we don't expect it to go away. Just some of the rules and source funding may change a little bit.
Okay, if I didn't ask, I probably would forget, so I just needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this upgrading our switching equipment?
Sorry, what was that?
Is this upgrading our switching equipment?
So because of the funding amount and the number of switches, we weren't doing all of our switches. They weren't all end of life. The switches we were looking to do, the total cost for that was higher than our allotment. So more likely than not, we are going to do a full wireless refresh and a partial switching refresh.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have a time frame of when you want to try to? I guess it depends on when the equipment or whatever else you need to come in. Is that
so
your backlogs or anything? And then the timing of you got to, summer, because you're not going to be pulling it.
Yeah, so part of why we had to get this addendum in is we just have deadlines coming up. I believe March, the Form 470 for this needs to be filled out. So I need to get back together with SHI if they're awarded this. So that way we can go and kind of button up the quote where we're getting the wireless equipment. We're maximizing that allotment without leaving $8 on the table. The team is aware that this is targeting a summer project. And I actually spoke with the vendor earlier today that if this does get approved by the board, we'll be talking about kind of next steps on when that equipment comes in, what an install could look like, things like that.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, I have a motion and a second on 7.2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Is there any other business for curriculum and technology under 7.3?
This time, we're going to have the principals give a short presentation on student achievement, so we'll have the principals come forward.
Okay, we'll get started with the high school 2023-24 assessment data first. So taking a look at our Keystone scores overall for the 23-24 school year. For the Algebra Keystone, our percentage of proficient or advanced students was 24% in the spring and 11% in the winter. For comparison, the state average is 32%. For the Biology Keystone, 23% were proficient or advanced in the spring, 15% were proficient or advanced in the winter, and the state average is 40%. For our Literature Keystones, 44% were proficient or advanced in the spring, 21% in the winter, and the state average is 53%. So in looking at the scores on this screen, you can tell that this is not a great outcome for us as far as our scores go at the high school. However, I think this is a great example of why the work that we are currently doing into our curriculum writing process for English and currently starting our math curriculum writing process as well as science is such important work so that we can align our curriculum to the standards and hopefully see those improvements in the scores because of that work that we are doing. On the next slide, I did add in here our 11th grade cohort data. Our current 11th graders are at the following proficiency level for the Keystones: 55% in literature, 46% in biology, and 49% in algebra. Just for comparison, again, the state rate proficiency at the end of 11th grade for 2024, so the year prior, was 63.2% in literature, 50.5% in biology, and 41.6% in algebra. So one good piece of news that we see coming out of the data on this slide is that our current 11th grade cohort is scoring higher than the state rate for proficiency in algebra. And then finally, just to talk a little bit about our Act 158 graduation requirement at the high school level. 100% of the graduating seniors met this requirement. 36% met this by scoring proficient on those Keystone exams, and that's really the first pathway that they could meet that Act 158 requirement. We had 23% meet that requirement with a composite score, so that means we took a combined score of their Keystone exams and they meet a magic number in order to get that composite score Act 158 pathway. We had 21% meet the alternate assessment pathway. So those would be our exams like the ASVAB test, the SAT, the PSAT. 10% CTE, so our students who go to BCTC, they take their NOCTI exams. That would be one example of students meeting that pathway through the CTE. 8% met the Act 158 pathway, meeting their IEP goals. And then finally, we had 2% meeting the pathway based on evidence. And the evidence-based pathway is a combination of criteria or artifacts. So you can get that through achieving an industry-level certification, such as OSHA, which all of our students who attend BCTC earn. We offer the Microsoft Office Specialist course at the high school, as well as First Aid and CPR, which are also considered industry-level certifications. So by earning one of those in combination with an internship or scoring proficient on one of their Keystone exams, acceptance into a four-year college or university, such as RAC, is another way that they can meet those Act 158 pathways. Any questions for the high school? Yes. Have we done any other assessment as far as the Keystone goes? Not that I can specifically think of, Mrs. Rexroad. They do take the CDTs quarterly in their classes just to get a baseline to see where they're at throughout the school year. But other than that, there's no assessment that we've created to come up with to see how out of, line we are with the current standards. Yeah, and it's definitely been part of our conversations in our curriculum meetings that we've been working, and it's great work and conversation that happens amongst the three different building levels to see where we really need to target areas that need change and specific changes to the curriculum moving forward. Any other questions?
On your first slide, it had broken down spring and winter. Do you add those two numbers together, or they stand independently?
They're independent.
Okay.
And sometimes completely different groups of students that are taking between winter and spring, just depending on the outcomes of both of those testing windows.
How do these? No,
go ahead. Well, so like the percentage in the winter, 11%, that's 11% of the total that took it during that winter
Yes.
time period?
And-
So we don't know how big that group is.
And the
Is
other
that-
thing to keep in mind about the winter testing window is it's not as large of a testing group in the winter testing window.
Right.
Those are really just the students that are retaking it for a second or maybe a third time during the winter testing window. Very seldomly do you have a student taking a Keystone test during the winter testing window for the very first time.
And how do these numbers compare to prior years?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because like they're not what we would hope they would be, but I'm curious what the prior years were. Are we going up? Are we going down? Have we been stable?
They've been pretty stable, about the same. Again, we've seen some of that growth occurring in the algebra Keystone, but they've been about the same, I would say, for at least the past couple of years since I've been here in the district.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to talk about some of these things in some of the same way, and I see my font is very small. I apologize.
Micro counting squint.
So I actually wrote down those numbers knowing that my eyes are probably not going to be able to see this well. So in terms of PSSA performance, the students in the middle school are tested on the math, language arts, and science in 8th grade. And then starting this year, they're also going to have science in 5th grade. But in terms of our PSSA results, historically, so we're looking at this year for our last year's progress for math. In 5th grade, they were at 31.4% proficient. The state average was 42.8. In 6th grade, they were 40.8% proficient, and the state average was 37.4, so they were above in 6th grade math. 7th grade math, 30.1% proficient. The state average was 34. And in 8th grade, they were 23.3% proficient with a state average of 28.5. Interestingly enough, last year and this year, all of our 8th graders have taken the Keystone exam. Every student who's in an algebra course, our students scored 41.1% proficient, which was right on what the actual state average was. So I think considering they were 8th graders, that's a good process. Obviously, we want it to be higher yet with all of these scores, but that's the direction we're headed. In terms of language arts proficiency, we were above the state average in each grade. 5th grade, we were at 58.5% proficient, where the state average was 52.2%. 6th grade, we were at 57.7, and the state average was 53. 7th grade, we were at 57.4, and the state average was 53.4. And in 8th grade, we were at 62.9 with the state average of 52.2. So another point I want to make, Mr. Amaral, kind of your question, as the students progress, it's good to see the grades the proficiency averages are increasing with each grade. And then finally, our science proficiency was at 60.5%, and the state average was at 54.5%. Those are the Keystone the PSSA scores. We can get all this information from the website called the Future Ready PA Index. That's where it shows all our achievement growth and state averages. So at any time, if anyone wants to go and look at this for yourself, it talks about the achievement results, growth rates, different types of demographic breakdowns, but all that information is readily available for you there. But one other area I wanted to look at, and again, I apologize for the font size, but the graph below is going to go to answer, I think, a very important question. It was looking at our cohorts. So that's the same group of students who have taken the PSSA test so this would be grades 4 through 7. So our current 8th graders, their PSSA performance in grades 4 through 7. So the first number at the left that I see is 140. So that means we've had 140 students from their 4th grade through their 7th grade that have been here and have all taken the PSSA exam. So it's our way of scoring and checking their progress. So those green bars show that we're steady and progressing in a positive direction. That red line is the annual yearly progress target line. So we're above that in each grade, in 8th grade reading cohort over the last 4 years. The 8th grade math cohort, you can look at the first 3 years, but then unfortunately the current last year's score, we were slightly below the AYP target rate. That's the only group of all of our groups that were below the target. But again, you're seeing the previous 3 years progression and the dip last year. 7th, same thing. It's kind of a steady result across the board. And you're looking at, I think it's 150 number of students in that 7th grade cohort meeting the AYP each year with the target rate. That's the math. I would consider that to be steady. Again, making AYP each year. 6th grade cohort, that's looking at their 3rd, 4th, and then 5th grade results. So again, pretty consistent, meeting the AYP target line. And the 6th grade math cohort, now again, unfortunately that's moving a little bit in the direction we don't want it to head in, but it goes to what Mrs. Crater said. We're excited about the work that we're doing for our curriculum writing. Mr. Rossi, to further answer your question about are we a little out of whack, they're unpacking the standards, which is what these tests use to assess students, to see where we can better align our curriculum with what the standards are. So that's part of the process. So we're excited to see what that's going to bring us. The only other challenge that I see, and I've talked about this before when we are talking about PSSA performance, we still deal with some opt-outs. Over the years, the requirements for opt-outs have been less challenging. And every student that opts out counts against our proficiency rating. So we for the first time last year, were below the 5% threshold that the state requires, which was an exciting number. We're hoping that we continue to move in the right direction there as well. But in previous years, our opt-out percentage was higher, and that was all scores that would count against our proficiency rating, which is a frustrating and a challenge. But that's what we're looking at in terms of PSSA performance. We use PSSAs as just one snapshot of the student's performance, and this data is going to serve as a benchmark to show how we're going to move forward in a positive direction with all the different curricular areas we're working on right now. I'm excited to see where we're going to go. Obviously, we're doing some things really well above state average, but we want to be way better. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm holding off on the 5th grade cohort for Dr. O'Donnell, because that's really talking about her students. They're 5th graders yet, but they haven't taken any tests at the middle school. Questions?
So our 8th graders, the majority of them in 8th grade are having Algebra 1?
Correct,
And
yes.
so there's less of a population than at the high school.
Yes.
So that would help with those numbers that are lower, because they could be struggling students or something else, where the majority of our math students in Algebra 1 are in the middle school.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for me?
And I think I saw the reading cohort. It looked like the reading, where if you can go back, 8th grade. So it looks like I know we've struggled with some of the reading programs that we've had in place at the elementary school. What's the right platform format or whatever, but it looks, if you went through your reading cohorts here at the middle school, it seems like we've caught up. Or
they're doing well, but I would say, I would caution.
I don't know. I can't see the numbers, so
it's
I
still in the
just
60s. So
okay. So then I'll take back what I said. I just can't see the numbers, Josh.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. I'm just trying to look at where we're at compared to that. The red line, it looks like we're better, but I don't know what the base is on that red line.
Yeah, I can share all this information.
Yep, that's
okay.
You'll have, if you look in your
the update.
board members, when you go online, you'll be able to see the presentation. It's in the
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, so as Dr. Keener had mentioned, the 5th grade cohort, while those students are currently in the middle school, what you see here are their scores when they were 3rd and 4th grade students at the elementary school. So this is the reading, and this is their math. So similar to what we saw in some of the other cohorts, while we're meeting the growth measure, we do see in math a slight decline for our students that were in 3rd and then 4th grade, now currently in 5th grade, and a slight increase for our students, again, that were here in 3rd, then 4th, and now in 5th grade. So our PSSA results for our students last year in 3rd and 4th grade, which is now currently our 4th and 5th grade students. For math, the number of students that were proficient and advanced in 3rd grade was 53%. The state average was 51%. In 4th grade, it was 39% in math. The state average was 48%. In ELA, in 3rd grade last year, we were at 55%, which was the state average, 55%. And in 4th grade, it was 48%, and the state average was 51%. You'll also see scores up here for science for our 4th grade students last year. We had 79% of our students were proficient and advanced, and the state average was 77%. We will no longer be testing at the statewide for science in 4th grade. That has been moved to 5th grade. Also moving forward, I don't believe anybody mentioned it, but we will now be transitioning to a digital version of state testing. This is the last year where we have the option to still use paper pencil, so the district has designed a plan where some grades will be piloting the digital assessment, while other students will still be taking the paper pencil. So I can say at the elementary level, I've been working with those teachers in 3rd and 4th grade who are implementing the PSSA test on the PDE release test design, and also on item scoring samplers, which are available on their website. Again, as we've talked about, we're reviewing and rewriting curriculum that was kind of needed across the board to make sure that we are teaching to the current standards. And then specifically at the elementary school, we have, as you all know, the Teacher Leadership Academy, which is our joint program with Kutztown University. We have 17 teachers that are involved in that, and so that entails taking graduate level courses with a focus on literacy instruction and best practice. And so when they finish at the end of this spring, they'll have coaching endorsements through the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they are very excited to start working with their colleagues to spread their knowledge and help all of our teachers at the elementary school implement best practices for literacy. Any questions for the elementary school or for any of us?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sure once we'll look at this stuff we're getting in our packet, electronically, if we have questions, we'll reach out. But thank you guys. And thanks for the effort of you and your teams, your teachers. I know it's a struggle. I know, like I said, we're working on the learning programs to try to get all that up to date. So is there anything else under 7.3, other old or new business? If not, we'll move on to Budget and Finance 8.0. With consensus, we'll approve, again, these are items that we spoke about in our committee meeting last Monday, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. Without objection, I'll consolidate. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Cleffel.
Second.
Second, Bendigo.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. It passes 8-0. 8.4, any other old or new business under Budget and Finance? Hearing none. 9.0, Buildings and Grounds. So we have 5 items that we had, 9.4, didn't we table 9.4, or did we even discuss it? Should I bring that up? Okay, that's fine. So we've discussed 9.1 through 9.4. So I'll entertain a motion without objection.
Could you leave 9-2 separate, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll do 9-1, 9-3, and 9-4 together. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Lash.
Second, Rossi.
Discussion. Again, this is on 9-1, 9-3, and 9-4. Hearing no discussions, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes 8-0. 9.2, this is a pending change order, ECI Construction LLC. I'll entertain a motion.
We have to amend this amount. EI communicated or negotiated with ECI to drop that cost from $74,000 to $50,000.
So 76,000?
Or 76, I'm sorry, it was from
76,424
to 50,000 even.
Okay. So having an amended amount for the pending change order 9 with ECI Construction LLC, the amended amount drops from $76,424 to $50,000. I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Bendigo.
Second, O'Donnell.
Second, O'Donnell. Thank you. Thank you for the efforts to make that change. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 8-0. We have one addendum item, Proposal 101, Mobility of Reading. The committee is requesting to consider and recommend approval of the proposal from 101 Mobility of Reading for 2 18-foot ramps to be used during the 2025 high school graduation in the amount of $2,050. I think, was this the same ramps that we used last year or similar? Probably similar.
Similar, I don't know if that's the same thing.
Yep. Similar to the ramps because we want external. I know last year we had the issue the year before with the ramps. So we have that. So I'll entertain a motion for 9.5.
So move, Cleffel.
Second.
Second, Amaral.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Have we looked into purchasing ramps? And what the cost would be?
I'm seeing a no, so not yet.
Okay. Just seems a lot for ramps, if we could purchase them and store them, since we use them every year.
Certainly look into that, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm sure it'll be an issue of storage at some point. They're 18 feet, but I'm sure they come in sections.
They come in sections.
Yep, no, I'm saying this. So, any other discussion? So, hearing none, I'll ask for the vote on 9.5. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0. Is there any old or new business for buildings and grounds? Moving on to 10.0, student services and activities. We have the 3 handbooks that we heard discussion for under 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. Would the board like to have those consolidated?
Yeah, we can consolidate them.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for consolidation of 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3.
So move, Cleffel.
Second, O'Donnell.
Discussion.
I got a couple questions. So, when are these due? When do you need them back for printing and stuff?
We still have time. We brought them to you early so that if there were questions or a need to delay, we'd have time. So we still have another month.
I do have a lot of things to go over. And I'm not sure you want to do it at this board meeting. I mean, someone from each school could reach out to me and we could go over. I mean, some stuff is simple. It says tips when it's supposed to be trips. Some other spelling problems says prove instead of provide. Under the penalties, you have use of a fire extinguisher unless there's a fire under number 3 and number 4, which doesn't make sense to me. So my opinion would be that maybe we table them until next month and we could do more of a deep dive on these here to get the small things corrected.
When would you propose to have the edits to them?
Do you want to do it during a policy and personnel?
Whatever's easiest. I mean, you know, we went through agreements. You know how long it takes me to go through agreements.
I think it would be better to set a date by which board members could submit their edits, give them time to edit them before the committee meetings, and then at the committee meetings, we'd be able to review at least partially or mostly edited documents, so we don't have to go through every item as a group.
Yeah, I don't think we do. I mean, I would just like to talk to somebody just to point out the errors that I found or whatever like that, so they can be corrected, and then I'm good to go.
Do you want to share those 3 with the principals that are here tonight, or do you want that, or do you want to hold on to them and then, I guess, hold on?
We can certainly schedule a meeting with Mr. Bendigo, with the 3 principals, and Mr. Bendigo to go over his edits, and then we can send a copy out to the board, Mr. Rossi, and then that way everybody could look at that and then make any other suggestions.
I mean, if anybody else would like to attend, I'm more than, you know, the more the merrier.
I think we should just capture, though, and share with the public if there's any material changes to the handbook, aside from some of the more simple edits.
Well, and I'll be quite honest with you. You know, I talk to a lot of parents, I talk to students, and, you know, a lot of the concerns about the handbooks overall is whether or not we're enforcing the dress codes uniformly, whether our cell phone policy is being followed uniformly. And we did a lot of discussion on that last year about what we put down in writing we have to follow. And generally, overall, discipline matters have been laxed in how they're being addressed in each building. And we have a tremendous amount of great students here who want to follow the rules. And it's not fair to them if kids are being allowed to not follow the rules or people are looking the other way. And I'll give you one example. In here it says, you know, as soon as you come in the building, hats have to come off, okay? And now there's a trendy thing for shower cap hats, or bucket hats they call them, and kids are wearing them in the buildings. Now, are they hats, or are they not hats? Are we following it or not following it? These are the ones that have to implement these rules. If you have it down in writing, we have to be following what's down in writing. If you don't want that to be a rule, then take it out of the manual and bring it to the board and let us look at it or whatever like that. You know, we come up with our policies, and you have a lot of the policies that are quoted in here, and you know, I keep going back and forth to make sure what is written in here is in compliance with our policy. I hope yous are doing that too, because our policies get changed every time Pennsylvania Department of Education goes and changes the requirements on school districts. You know, so I mean, I think there's, you know, some things got to be updated. I mean, I'll give you one example. Under the devices here, says that the student has to ask the teacher every class to take their device out of the classroom. But yet we have them taking their devices home. They got to be charged before they bring them in the next day. So is that an old rule that when we used to have charging stations in the rooms and they kept their devices in school and it was never updated or not? I don't know. But it's a user here every day, you know? So what you want and what you need should be in here so the parents and the students understand what's expected out of them. I did have one general question here for the middle school. They have a policy right in the front here, which is a positive behavior intervention and support program. I'm kind of curious how that is working overall on addressing disciplinary problems, because it talks about a different way for them to be addressed, and it talks about daily rewards. I don't know what are the daily rewards that kids get for
I think we were told that last week.
for well, you got the ROAR behavior matrix that we go by and stuff like that, and it also talks about that the PBIS school team has developed a discipline system. Who all is on that team?
We have a committee of teachers. Dr. Gabrillik leads that. In terms of the PBIS, the daily concept is teachers provide roar pause when they see students do good things. So it's a little red card. Students get them and then put them into a box for regular drawings to get any number of things, whether it's ice cream at lunch. Some of the teachers have offered homework passes, like a 3% bonus points on a quiz type thing. There's other kinds of little knickknacks. Lunch with the principal, no one picks that. But lunch with a favorite teacher. There's any number of different things that are regularly provided. They do gift cards as part of when Dr. Gabrillik will go into the lunchroom and draw names for gift cards to local, Dunkin' Donuts, Sheetz, all kinds of different small gift cards. So that's part of what the positive behavior support.
So the overall program, it says when some students do not respond to teaching of the behavioral rules, we will view it as an opportunity for reteaching, not just punishment. So have we seen positive results from that program, I guess?
Yes. Obviously, we regularly deal with unfortunate behaviors as well. So I would have to get the action. I'd have to go through with Dr. Gabrillik and look at the actual data to see if it's helped to decrease specific discipline rates. So I can't give you actual quantifiable data for that.
And
right
that's
now.
and all I'm trying to point out is that's one of the things. You have a program like that, it's got to be reviewed to see if there's a positive result from the program, or if is it causing more problems with other students who see behavior issues who they think are not being addressed, but they're being addressed under this program. I don't know. You're there every day. So it would, it'd be nice to at least get some feedback on whether or not that is successful or not successful.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
But whenever we can get together, we can go over this stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had one quick question with what Mr. Brown referred to earlier with coats in the schools and that we're keeping them in lockers. Is there a rationale other than the ability to hide weapons? Since
when he said that, I didn't remember that from our school board meeting. I remember the administrators saying that it was a safety issue, that everybody didn't have their coats in the classrooms, and then they ended up on the floor and kids are tripping over them and things like that.
I assumed there would be that wouldn't be the only explanation.
Principals,
like
would you just
said,
come up and speak to that?
And if you can go to your lockers between classes, the weapons,
Sure. Honestly,
logic doesn't hold water.
Some of that goes back to as far as like Columbine, in terms of when those ideas were put in place. We typically tell students that their coats are supposed to remain in their lockers during the day. And like I said last month, if we have unique situations where it's extremely cold, or we had an unfortunate situation where the heat didn't work properly for a little while until the custodians were able to get some heaters into a few classrooms. If students are uncomfortable or cold, they're always given the opportunity to go get their coats at any time. We've never said no to that. We've had a situation or two where it's really chilly in the outside office, where either Dr. Gabrillik or myself, having just cinder block walls, wear an extra coat. So if we're going to have to do that when it's cold, we're obviously going to allow the children to do that as well. So I don't.
We've had a lot of conversations about coats over the last few weeks. So I guess the first thing I just want to ask is, and maybe I just grew up in a different age, but I don't remember ever being allowed to wear my coat when I went to school. The expectation was that I came into the school, into my classroom, and I placed my coat on a hook with my backpack in the back of my classroom. And in high school, I did the same thing, but I placed my coat in my locker with my backpack, and I actually had to carry all my books in my arms from class to class. I wasn't even allowed to carry a backpack around. So I get very confused about the coat conversation because that's not something that I was accustomed to growing up. I don't believe my own children are accustomed to wearing coats during the school day. Now, of course, again, like Dr. Keener had mentioned and we had talked about last week, when there have been situations, such as last year when we had classrooms that were very cold, and there were other areas in the building that were very cold, we of course allowed students to wear coats, and we had a number of parents reach out to us about that and had conversations about that, and they were allowed to wear them in those situations. So again, I think that's where it's coming from. We asked them to be put away when they enter the building, and of course, if something would come up throughout the day, we would allow them to put them on. In a safety situation, like was brought up tonight, our main prerogative is to get those kids out of the building as quickly as possible to safety. So I can't say that allowing them to grab their coats before we leave the building is our #1 priority because we just want to get them out. And our priority that day was to get them out as quickly as possible down to the middle school into a building that was warm so that they were somewhere safe while we were investigating the building and making sure the building was safe for our students. So it's not that we're not allowing them to wear their coats. Of course, we want them to wear their coats to school. But while they're sitting in the classrooms, especially with the upgrades to the HVAC, we haven't really had those cold areas of the building. So I just... You know, I know it was brought up in a meeting when I was not here, and I thank Mrs. Rexroad for addressing those concerns in my absence that evening. But I just wanted you to hear it from, again, firsthand, what happens in those specific situations and why we have the coat policies that we do. Safety is, of course, another concern to us. And I'm not talking about a light jacket like Mr. Bendigo might have on right now that a student's wearing to school, but we do have some students who wear large parka coats to school. And there are videos out there on safety and what can be hidden in a large parka coat. So it does come down to us just trying to keep the building safe for our students.
I can speak on behalf of the elementary school. To my knowledge, there aren't any concerns about students wearing coats when they come to school, when they're at school. Certainly, if we had a situation where a classroom was cold, if we're going out to a pre-planned, of course, fire drill, students are allowed to wear whatever they wore to school, coats, hats, gloves, things of that nature. And our dress code at the elementary school doesn't specifically cite any particular item of clothing. It just says as long as it's not interfering with or impacting, the education of other students. So, any other questions about elementary school?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it sounds like for 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, we have some edits that we need to perform. So we have it on our agenda, so I'm going to entertain a motion to table.
Yeah, and I apologize for that, but I don't think the board should be asked to approve documents that are not finished documents.
I think there's a consensus, Mr. Bendigo.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to table.
So move, Clifford.
I need a second.
Second, Bendigo.
So all those in favor of tabling 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3 until we can get these edits performed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 10-4. Is there any other old or new business for student services and activities? Hearing none, we'll move on to 11O. Any other business or good of the order? Hearing none. 12.0, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Buckle.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?